Kicking off at number 5, the Longyu Caves. And this place in particular is absolutely mind-blowing, given the fact that if it was indeed made by human civilization, then we've got to really take a look at how capable our ancient ancestors actually were at building things. Picture this, in 1992 in the small Chinese village of Longyu, the locals had lived for centuries beside a small series of ponds that littered the landscape. Local legend believed that these ponds were bottomless, infinite wells of water, but one local in particular named Wu and I set out to put that legend to the test. After pooling his money together with another villager, he purchased a pump and completely drained one of the ponds, and that's when Wu and I discovered that it wasn't a pond at all, but instead the flooded entrance to an ancient series of man-made caves. But when I say caves, I don't just mean a few interesting holes in the earth, I mean hand-carved caves, each the size of roughly 1,000 square meters, reaching up to heights of up to 100 feet. Inside, the ceilings, the walls, the pillars that maintain their structural integrity were all finished in the exact same manner, hand-carved with a series of parallel bands and intricate markings. Now, no one has any clue how the hell these caves were created or who created them, but researchers have found that they date back to at least 220 BCE, a period that predates the ancient Qin dynasty, although no trace of their construction or even their existence has ever been located in the historic record. In fact, up until their discovery in 1992, the Longyu Caves were forgotten to the sands of time. It makes you think, what else is lurking down there, right? Coming in next at number 4, Petra. And yes, of course, this is the scene that I was alluding to in our opening clip, the ancient city of Petra, described by UNESCO as one of the most precious cultural properties of mankind's cultural heritage, and perhaps one of the most amazing archaeological wonders on this fair planet. This place is fascinating, and it's a monument to the fact that we really have no idea how capable humanity has been for thousands upon thousands of years. Petra, originally known to its inhabitants as Rakmu, is believed to have been settled perhaps as early as 9000 BC, although earlier estimations have been suggested. However, by the 5th century BC, it is believed that the city of Petra itself was settled by the mysterious Nabatean kingdom, an ancient conglomerate of Bedouin tribes that were incredibly astute traders and economists who for the most part were a nomadic people but recognized the significance of Petra's geographical location. And for the most part, that was fit exactly for Petra's purpose, as it quickly became a massive central hub for trading routes across the world, gaining the Nabatean kingdom incredible wealth in the process. But I mean, you just need to look at Petra to start scratching your head at the incredible intricacies of its design. I don't say this lightly, because the Rose City of Petra is an absolutely stunning feat of engineering at a time when nomadic societies weren't exactly known for their capability in raising wonders of the world. So how was it built? Well, the leading theory so far is that the Nabatean people harnessed the location's susceptibility to flash flooding, gradually carving the narrow passages into the city-like network that we now know. Either way, whatever the truth to it, Petra is an ancient wonder to behold. Oh, and also archaeologists have just discovered that there's a gigantic monumental structure buried beneath the sands of Petra. So yeah, do with that information as you will.
Number 3. Himeji Castle and Okiku's Well. Himeji Castle. It's a majestic fortress located in Himeji City. Despite the castle's outward beauty, it hides a dark legend centered around a cursed well, so infamous that it's inspired countless folk tales and the iconic Japanese horror classic Ringu. The legend revolves around a girl named Okiku, who served in Himeji Castle during the feudal era. Okiku possessed a great beauty and caught the attention of a samurai lord. She rejected his advances due to her loyalty to another samurai. Enraged by this rejection, the lord framed Okiku for a crime and accused her of stealing one of 10 precious family heirloom plates. Okiku knew she was innocent, and thus she refused to confess to the crime. The lord was a sadist and treated Okiku with cruel impunity. He tormented her, subjecting her to unspeakable acts, things better left said in polite company like my YouTube friends. Determined to get her to confess to this false crime, he cast her into a well, where she would fall to her death. This well is now known as Okiku's Well, and it's become a place of dread and sorrow. Do not drink anything that comes out of this thing, because it's said that Okiku's ghost emerges from the well, counting the plates repeatedly in a desperate attempt to prove her innocence and seek justice. Now, legend has it that if the count reaches 9, a terrible curse will befall Himeji Castle and all the inhabitants. Now, if this sounds kind of familiar, and maybe because I mentioned that it's the inspiration for Ringu earlier in this point, this was the inspiration for the iconic Japanese horror film franchise. A cursed videotape haunts anyone who watches it, leading to their gruesome demise in 7 days. The film's ghost, Sadako, or Samara Morgan if you're American, shares similarities with Okiku, including her ghostly emergence from a well and a vengeful desire to seek justice. And you know what? I bet both Okiku and Sadako are actually real sweethearts if you just sit down and get to know them. The well in Himeji Castle continues to captivate visitors who report all sorts of eerie things. Disembodied whispers and overwhelming feeling of unease near the well's vicinity. Are you brave enough? I honestly would not even dare. And also, I gotta work in 7 days, so I can't be watching any haunted videotapes. Number 2. Inanaki Island. Deep within the mist-shrouded mountains of Japan lies a place that chills the souls who dare speak its name, Inanaki Village. This cursed and forsaken village holds a dark legend that scares even the bravest paranormal enthusiasts. According to the folklore, Inanaki Village was once a thriving community, but a series of horrific events would lead to its downfall. The villagers were driven to madness by an unknown force, descended into depravity, practicing dark rituals and unspeakable acts of cruelty. You gotta sub to the Patreon if you want to hear about all the unspeakable acts, all the stuff that's too unspeakable for YouTube. Their actions attracted the attention of malevolent spirits, which descended upon the village, claiming the lives of everyone. Since that fateful day, Inanaki Village has been enveloped in eternal darkness. The streets run rampant with poltergeists and all manner of spiritual prankster. Legend has it that those who are daring enough to venture into the village are forever trapped, doomed to be tormented by the restless souls, and eventually join the Legion back there. Whispers of the village's legends echo through the forest, warning travelers of the malevolence inside. The air is thick with an otherworldly presence, and the sounds of disembodied voices fill the night. Witnesses claim to have seen shadowy figures lurking among the dilapidated houses, their eyes filled with anger. It's said to be a place where time stands still, macabre secrets locked away from the world. Now, those who have entered its boundaries report all these things like sudden drops in temperature, a feeling of being watched, scratches appearing on their bodies. The anguished cries of the torment souls who met their gruesome fate reverberate through the darkness. Inanaki Village stands as a reminder of the depths of human darkness and the consequences that follow, and it serves as a warning for those who hear its name. I personally probably wouldn't go, but I recommend you might, and hey, if nobody's living there except ghosts, I'm willing to bet you can probably get an amazing deal on a 1-bedroom there. Might be worth looking into investing. Number 1, Hashima Island. And finally, we've come to our conclusion with Japan's Hashima Island, which is commonly known as Gunkanjima, Battleship Island, is a small abandoned island located approximately 15 kilometers off the coast of Nagasaki. The island's most distinctive feature that you'll recognize is that it looks like a battleship, hence the nickname Battleship Island. It's not just because they love the Milton Bradley company over there. Hashima Island was once a thriving coal mining community during Japan's industrialization period. In the early 20th century, Mitsubishi developed the island to extract coal from the island's rich undersea mines. As the demand for coal increased, the population on the island grew as well. To accommodate this growing workforce, high-rise apartment buildings were constructed, making this island one of the most densely populated places in the world at the time. Imagine how bad the rent was here. Now, eventually the island got just too saturated in the 50s. With the decline of coal mining in the 70s, the island's viability decreased and Mitsubishi shut down the mines. The inhabitants left, with nothing left on the island but dust and echoes. Hashima Island still perseveres on. Decaying buildings, rotting concrete, dilapidated roads, decrepit remains of what used to be a bustling community. Do I have another synonym for rotting? Not sure, but if you've got a thesaurus handy, leave one in the comments. The remnants of daily life have been left untouched, leaving behind a very ghostly atmosphere that evokes feelings of stuff like Chernobyl. Now, access to most of the island is very prohibited. The place is deteriorating fast, and local government worries that, any unsupervised intrusion will cause future damage. So there are some incredibly limited guided tours for those looking to wander amidst the memories. And Hashima Island definitely has an appeal to it. It's captured the interest of photographers, filmmakers, all sort of drawn to that post-apocalyptic look. And it serves as a nice, poignant reminder of the rapid industrialization and subsequent decline that characterized Japan's history and the human stories that unfolded within its concrete walls. And what's scarier than thinking about how industrialization and the capitalist machine will eventually kill all of us? Nothing, except maybe like a ghost. A ghost is pretty scary.
Starting off at number 5, the Island of Dolls. Nestled within the waterways just south of Mexico City lies an island veiled in a chilling mystery, the Island of Dolls. It is a place that resonates with an eerie atmosphere that sends shivers down the spines of those who dare to venture there. It got its name from, well, all the dolls just hanging around on the island, which is so creepy. The Island of Dolls owes its spooky reputation to a tragic legend that took root decades ago. The story goes that a reclusive man named Don Julian Santana once inhabited the island. One fateful day, he stumbled upon the lifeless body of a young girl floating in a nearby canal. Haunted by this grim discovery, and reportedly tormented by her spirit, Santana began to collect discarded and broken dolls from the canals and garbage dumps. As if driven by an inexplicable force, Santana hung these disfigured and weathered dolls from the trees and structures that adorn the island. Each doll, with its hollow eyes and decaying limbs, became a haunting sentinel, a tribute to the spirit of the lost girl, and a manifestation of Santana's obsession to protect against malevolent forces. Over the years, the island transformed into an unsettling amalgamation of youthful innocence and twisted horror. Countless dolls in various states of decomposition dangle ominously from branches, fences, and makeshift shrines. The air resonates with a cacophony of whispering plastic, swaying gently in the wind and casting eerie shadows upon the island's murky landscape. Anyone lucky enough to find the Island of Dolls are met with a startling attack on the senses. Dolls with vacant stares seem to follow your every move, while the creaking of their plastic limbs evokes an unsettling symphony. The rustling leaves and distant echoes only amplify the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes, and a pervasive sense of unease settles in like a thick fog. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Chucky, but I personally am never going to that island. Like, ever. In a world captivated by the digital and the predictable, the Island of Dolls stands as a testament to the enigmatic and the unknown. Google Maps may lay bare the streets and landmarks of our world, but this haunting isle remains shrouded in the shadows of its own haunting past. Next, at number 4, Dracula's Castle. Perched high upon a rugged hill in the heart of Transylvania, Bran Castle stands as a timeless sentinel of history, mystery, and folklore. Its jagged stone walls loom like the teeth of a beast, casting a grand silhouette of a starved monster. Better known as Dracula's Castle, this imposing fortress has captured the imagination of generations, spawning theories as to what its origins are, who resides there, and its purpose. Built in the 14th century, Dracula's castle's grim purpose was shrouded in secrecy, its shadowy corridors echoing with whispered tales of unspeakable horrors. Within its heart, a labyrinth of cryptic chambers and chilling catacombs await, a realm where time has danced to a different rhythm, and where the line between reality and the supernatural is irrevocably blurred. A macabre masterpiece of Gothic architecture, Bran Castle's towering spires and ominous battlements seem to claw at the heavens, a testament to the power and the darkness that thrives within. As one ventures deeper into its foreboding depths, portraits of ancestral lords and queens gaze down with eyes that follow your every move, their watchful presence hinting at an age-old pact with the undead. Legends whispered in hushed tones speak of secret passages that wind like serpents beneath the castle, hidden alcoves concealing the coffins of the immortal vampires who walk the night. Torchlight dances upon stone walls, casting eerie, dancing shadows that seem to writhe like restless spirits longing for release from their eternal rest. Outside, the moon cast an otherworldly glow upon the desolate landscape, illuminating the ancient cemetery that stretches before the castle's gates. Tombstones, worn with the passage of time, bear cryptic inscriptions that tell of the souls lost and lives extinguished in the name of an insatiable hunger. Within these walls, where the air is full with a scent of ancient evil, one can almost hear the whisper of cape against stone, the faint flutter of wings, and the soft, hypnotic cadence of a heartbeat that defies mortality. It is a place where the legend of Dracula breathes, where the boundary between life and death is a tenuous thread ready to snap at any moment. As the winds howl through the battlements and the moon casts its eerie glow upon the castle's spires, one can't help but feel that the veil between the world is at its thinnest here, and that the spirit of the vampire himself may still roam these halls, forever haunting those who dare to tread within the realm of Dracula's castle. And number 3, South Base Island Lighthouse. Perched atop the rugged cliffs of South Base Island in Put-in Bay, the historic lighthouse stands as both a beacon of maritime history and a portal to a realm of ghostly legends. The South Base Island Lighthouse, with its iconic red brick tower and majestic views of Lake Erie, cast a haunting silhouette against the ever-changing skies, drawing visitors from far and wide who seek to unravel the mysteries that have enshrouded this hallowed site for decades. Built in 1897, the South Base Island Lighthouse served as a vital navigational aid for ships traversing the treacherous waters of Lake Erie. Its light guided sailors through storms and fog, ensuring safe passage to the shores. However, as time marched on and technology advanced, the lighthouse's significance diminished, eventually leading to its decommissioning in the mid-20th century. But as darkness descends upon the island, the lighthouse takes on an air of malevolence. The wind howls like the mournful wails of lost souls, while the crashing waves below create a symphony of despair. Those brave enough to step inside confront an unsettling stillness, punctuated only by the occasional creak of floorboards under an invisible, unrelenting force. Phantom shadows dance along the walls, their ethereal forms casting an ominous dance that defies explanation. Visitors recount harrowing tales of icy fingers brushing against their skin, of ghostly whispers that worm their way into their minds, and of an overpowering sense of dread that lingers long after they've fled the premises. The lighthouse had to be shut down after several reports of it turning off at random times, or guiding sailors towards dangerous areas, despite being completely unmanned. One can only assume that this mischief was the work of the spirits that haunt the lighthouse. This forsaken lighthouse has earned its place among the most terrifying locales in Ohio, a reputation upheld by relentless tales of ghostly apparitions, unexplainable phenomena, and an atmosphere so saturated with maleficent energy that it leaves visitors trembling in its wake. Whether driven by morbid curiosity or a thirst for the macabre, those who dare to cross the threshold into the South Base Island Lighthouse do so at their own peril. For here, in the heart of the lighthouse's labyrinthine corridors, the boundary between the living and the spectral blurs, and the chilling embrace of the unknown reaches out to ensnare those who dare to seek it. And at number 2, Moonville Tunnel. Deep within the remote woods of southeastern Ohio lies a sinister enigma shrouded in darkness, the Moonville Tunnel. This desolate and haunted passage, long abandoned by the living, stands as a portal to a realm where reality intertwines with the supernatural, and where the unwary may find themselves vanishing into the void if they dare to tread too close. The Moonville Tunnel, a vestige of an era past, was once a vital conduit for a long-forgotten railway. Yet, as time eroded the tracks and decay seeped into its very stones, a chilling transformation occurred. Stories of ghastly apparitions and eerie encounters have swirled around the tunnel, like the mist that clings to its mouth. Tales whispered among locals with a mixture of dread and fascination. Daredevil adventurers who have ventured into the tunnel speak of an oppressive, tangible malevolence that envelops the air, an unrelenting presence that seems to watch, to wait, and to hunger for the unsuspecting. Perhaps the most sinister tale is that of the Moonville Tunnel's insatiable appetite for souls. It is said that if you step foot into the tunnel around 3 a.m., when the boundaries between worlds are at their thinnest, you may never step back out. Foolhardy wanderers who venture into its depths during the witching hour risk becoming mere specters themselves, forever trapped in a twilight realm of torment and despair. The tunnel's history is steeped in tragedy, adding to its ominous aura. Legends tell of a brakeman who met a grisly end beneath the wheels of an oncoming train, his anguished spirit now condemned to roam the dark expanse. Others speak of mournful phantom cries that pierce the silence, echoing the heart-wrenching despair of a long-lost soul. Visitors who dare to challenge the Moonville Tunnel's eerie reputation tread a perilous path, as the moonlight filters through the dense canopy, casting ghostly shadows upon the tunnel's yawning maw. A feeling of being watched intensifies. Footsteps echo with an eerie resonance, their sound swallowed by the blackness ahead. Time itself seems to warp, stretching and distorting reality as though beckoning the unwary to step beyond the veil. To approach the Moonville Tunnel is to court danger, to teeter on the precipice of the unknown. It is a place where the boundary between the living and the dead blurs, where the rules of our reality are subverted by forces beyond comprehension. As the wind whispers secrets and the very earth seems to hold its breath, those who venture too close may find themselves joining the ranks of the vanished, a chilling testament to the dark and untamed forces that linger within the haunted confines of Moonville Tunnel. Coming in at number 1, Franklin Castle. Franklin Castle, an imposing Victorian mansion nestled in the heart of Cleveland, Ohio, stands as an enigmatic edifice brimming with dark secrets and eerie tales that have earned it a reputation as one of the most haunted houses in America. With its intricate architecture, turrets, and ornate details, the castle's exterior belies the chilling stories that have swirled around it for generations. Built in the late 19th century by German immigrant and banker Hans Tiedemann, the Franklin Castle was intended to be a symbol of prosperity and opulence. However, as time passed, the mansion's grandeur began to fade, replaced by rumors of tragedy, scandal, and paranormal activity that would come to define its legacy. The Tiedemann family was plagued by a series of untimely deaths, including the passing of several youngsters and Tiedemann's wife. The pervasive aura of grief seemed to seep into the very walls of the castle, fostering an atmosphere of melancholy and despair. It is said that the spirits of the deceased still linger within its chambers, their presence felt by those who dare to venture inside. Over the years, reports of ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices, and unexplained phenomena have only added to the castle's haunted mystique. Visitors and paranormal enthusiasts alike have recounted chilling experiences, from encountering spectral figures that vanish into thin air, to hearing whispers that seem to drift from empty rooms. Cold spots and sudden drops in temperature are often attributed to the presence of otherworldly entities, and of course the few unlucky folks who, seemingly out of random, would receive the same curse as Tiedemann all those years ago. The castle's haunted reputation has been further fueled by the stories of secret passageways, hidden rooms, and a mysterious woman in black who is said to roam the halls. These elements, combined with the mansion's unsettling history, have led to countless investigations by ghost hunters and paranormal experts seeking to unlock its mysteries.
Number 5 on this list is Dunstay Lakhang. This temple is located in Bhutan, an often overlooked nation that's nestled between Nepal, Bangladesh, and China. This nation is largely populated with Buddhist monks and is known for its monasteries, fortresses, and incredible landscape. The country itself is already shrouded in mystery, and this place is probably the best example of that. Holidify writes, Dunstay Lakhang was built by the Thangtong Gyalpo in the year 1433. It's said that the monument was constructed on the body of a monster that was causing harm to the inhabitants. There are mysterious stories about this place, and locals believe that the divine power of the temple would retain the demon from coming back to life. The building is in the form of a diagram mandala, and different floors represent the earth, the heaven, and hell. The horror-inspired frescoes on the walls leave visitors dazzled and add to the mystic charm of this place. Dunstay Lakhang is carefully preserved, and it requires special permission from the authorities to get into the landmark. Any place that's guarded heavily like this and not allowing the public, plus it has deep ties to the devil and hell, obviously needs to make the list. Also, the entire legend surrounding it, where it was built on the body of a monster, already adds to the mystery surrounding this spot. Stories have come out of this place, with some of the very few people who have been inside of it being met with spiritual visitors. Potentially, this strange temple is actually a portal of sorts to connect us of the living world to those of the dead. It's impossible to say, but it also doesn't help that the authorities won't let us in to explore it. If you do manage to find a way inside, then you'll need to bring a flashlight though. There's no lights in this place at all, and it's said to be completely dark on the inside, which just adds to the mystery again. Number 4 on this list is the Plain of the Jars. Located in Laos, this site is definitely a weird one. A bunch of stone jars, 2,000 of them to be exact, all scattered throughout the fields of this hilly terrain. These jars are very sizable and made of pure rock. In fact, the word jars is pretty generous because it's basically just a bunch of rocks with holes on the top of them. What they're used for, who put them here, and how they got here though are all a big mystery. Maybe the most interesting thing about these jars is the story with World War II. In World War II, the site in question was heavily bombed. One would imagine that some stones with holes in them would be obliterated from a heavy barrage of bombs, but they weren't. In fact, it didn't look like they took any damage at all. Some people believe this is because these jars have a deep spiritual connection to them. This lends itself to the origin of these jars, where people think that they were used for some interesting sacrificial rituals. Granted, some other people believe that they were used to make wine. A bunch of jars to sacrifice people, or a bunch of jars to get drunk off of. I guess you guys be the judge.
Number 3. Mausoleum of the first Qin Emperor, Qin Shi Huang. The tomb of former Emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, is notable for many reasons. Maybe it was because in 1974, when farmers from the Shaanxi province were digging a well, they discovered hundreds upon hundreds of terracotta soldiers, complete with horses, chariots, officers, infantry, a court, I think even some bears, oh my. They discovered one of the world's greatest archaeological wonders, 2,000 terracotta soldiers in Qin Shi Huang's tomb. The tomb was built like this basically to serve as history's most impressive flex. Qin Shi Huang wanted to make it good and clear that even in death, he held more might and more power than anyone could ever imagine. You know that saying, you can't take it with you? Well, he wanted to take it with him. He wanted his own army to serve him in the afterlife. The wild part about this is we don't even know how far it goes, since it still hasn't fully been uncovered even all these years later. Those thousands of terracotta soldiers might just be the first wave of guys. While he reigned, Qin Shi Huang wanted to make very sure that his tomb was a good approximation of his legacy, so thousands of laborers worked tirelessly for decades to create an emperor's tomb. They think that 700,000 laborers worked on this for 40 years. That's already unbelievable, but Qin Shi Huang only even lived to be 49, so good thing they got that done in time, eh? Qin Shi Huang himself is buried beneath an enormous pyramid mound that stands a good distance away from the rest of the tomb. Now here's where the haunted part starts to come in. According to historians, this central tomb contains treasures and wondrous objects he attained during his life, including a flowing river of pure mercury, which doesn't really sound like the greatest idea, but back then they thought that made you immortal. Soil testing the nearby areas does have elevated levels of mercury, so that might actually be true. No one is too eager to check though, since it sounds like Qin Shi Huang kitted this place out to keep any would-be Nathan Drakes or Lara Crofts from raiding this uncharted tomb. It's said that it's got ancient ballistas and all sorts of traps like mechanisms that'll fire arrows at potential grave robbers, and hey, that mercury vapor probably isn't doing you any favors, so don't try to breathe that in. In any case, the Chinese government has been in no rush to explore what's down there. It's best to let the sleeping dead lie, especially when the sleeping dead has thousands of personal bodyguards, and it's probably haunted, let's be real. Number 2. Snake Island. Our next entry, Isla de Quimada Grande, is formally dubbed as Snake Island, which really should tell you right off the bat that whatever I'm about to describe is not a friendly place. Traditionally, places are only named things like Snake Island if they're like, filled to bursting with snakes, or if they're home to like a snake-themed supervillain or something. I'm pretty sure the guys who fought G.I. Joe lived on Snake Island. Anyway, Snake Island is called that because by conservative estimates, there's roughly a snake for every square meter of the island, meaning there's anywhere from 4,000 golden lancehead vipers or more living there. There's more snakes than there are people, and that's because most Brazilian locals know way better than to go to an island where one of the most venomous snakes on the planet live. Yeah, I left that part out. Well, I'm talking about it now. It's not just like garter snakes slithering about here. Isla de Quimada Grande is home to the golden lancehead, a beautiful creature in its own right that just happens to be one of the most lethal bites to humans. A bite from this snake can cause, let's list off some fun side effects: kidney damage, necrosis, brain hemorrhaging, venom poisoning, and oh, my favorite, internal intestinal damage. So just leave them alone. Even if for some bizarre reason I've told you all of that and you just love going to places you're not meant to and you're just dying for a chance to go visit venomous Snake Island, you are going to run into a bit of trouble because it's literally forbidden. The Brazilian government strictly monitors those who travel. Naval forces do visit annually to maintain the lighthouse, and there's a research station to study and analyze the local population, but all of these visits are accompanied by paramedics and trained doctors, just in case any of the locals decide to say hello the only way they know how. Am I the only one who thinks the golden lancehead is kind of cute, like in a little weird way? I don't want one as a pet, but I don't know, I think these danger noodles have very cute little eyes, but maybe that's just one of my red flags. And number 1, Poveglia. This list has not been pleasant. I guess I should have expected that, given the tone of all of these wretched, horrible, and haunted places. So let's close this list off and find somewhere nice and sunny to get away from all of life's woes. Maybe somewhere nice like, I don't know, Italy? Maybe somewhere off the coast of Venice, like the island of Poveglia? Now, Poveglia is an infamous island in Italian history. It once served as a quarantine zone and final resting place for victims of the Black Plague. You know that one. As the plague ravaged Europe and paranoia set in across the lands, it was said that anyone who showed so much as a symptom, if you had a runny nose, they shipped you off to Poveglia to live out the rest of your days. Oftentimes, they would send people who weren't even really sick. You just complain about a headache trying to get a day off work and you're on a longboat to the last island you're ever going to go to. It's said that over 50% of the island's soil is made of burned human ash. Let that set in for a second. The ground itself is haunted. In the early 19th century, the island converted from a quarantine zone to a mental asylum because I guess it thought that that wasn't scary enough. The asylum did not do much to improve Paveglia's reputation. Instead of being home to the sick, now it was home to droves of mentally unwell patients being made into victims by a doctor's sick experiments. Cruel doctors at the asylum would impose their patients into lobotomies with no concern for sanitation or their safety, with chisels, drills, and rarely if ever using anesthetic. An old ghost story has it that the main doctor at the asylum was haunted by the spirits of his former patients and the crimes he'd committed, and it drove him to such madness that he cast himself off the bell tower of the island, where they say his screams can still be heard. Now, if I told you all of that and you still want to visit, first of all, why? And second of all, you're going to need to be pretty crafty, as it's totally, completely forbidden. You will be pressed to the fullest extent of the law if you're caught trespassing, not even remotely worth the risk if you ask me. At best, you get arrested. At worst, haunted for the rest of your days. Number 5. Himuro Mansion. Up first on this list of haunting places in Japan is Himuro Mansion, an oft-repeated folk tale and Japanese urban legend that's told with a hushed whisper. It's one of the more famous urban legends of Japan and actually ended up inspiring the Fatal Frame series of horror video games if you're a fan of those. The legend goes that the mansion once belonged to a wealthy and influential family. Noble and well-respected, people would speak of rumors of the family's involvement in the occult and their practice of sinister rituals. The most notorious one was known as the strangling ritual, which was performed every half-century to prevent an ages-old dark curse that would engulf the mansion and its inhabitants and spill out into the surrounding lands. This ritual involved selecting a young noble girl from a prestigious lineage. She was then known as the Rope Maiden, and I know what that name sounds like, but it's not for good reasons, trust me. The Rope Maiden on the day of the ritual would be tied and bound to 4 horses, and I promise you don't want to know what comes next, but you can probably imagine. The story goes that when it came time for the last ritual, the maiden was smitten with a member of the family who wanted to run away with her. The patriarch of the family raised his blade to the maiden and then on his own family, and finally himself. Himuro Mansion was abandoned and lost to time. Whether or not it still stands is even a dispute. The legends say that if you find Himuro Mansion and you take photos at it, you'll see the ghosts of all the Rope Maidens of past. This legend is what directly inspired the Fatal Frame series of horror video games, which all revolve around using a camera to take pictures of ghosts in abandoned mansions. So you can see where that idea turned into the final project. They're one of the most terrifying games I've ever played, and if you've never played one, I definitely recommend, especially if you're a fan of Japanese urban legends. And I assume you are, so why you're watching this video. But if you're looking for more Japanese urban legends, or heck, any urban legend around the globe, Top 5 Scary has all of that and then some. In fact, if you can think it up, we've probably done a video or 2 or 3 on it. So hit subscribe, please make sure you hit that bell as well, and would you kindly do that at the end of this video, because I got 4 more scary Japanese urban legends coming for you right now. Number 4, Hirosaki Castle. Coming up next on our list of hot spots to avoid is Hirosaki Castle. It's located in Aomori Prefecture, and it has a history steeped in darkness and ghostly legends. This beautiful castle, surrounded by cherry blossom trees, holds secrets that whisper through its corridors and send shivers down the spines of those who dare to explore. The legends say that Hirosaki Castle is haunted by the tormented spirit of a young maid named Oshichi. In the feudal era, Oshichi served as a maid in the castle's quarters, where she felt deeply in love with a samurai. However, this forbidden love was discovered, and Oshichi's lover was punished and executed for the simple crime of love. Consumed by grief and longing, Oshichi's heart turned to darkness. On the night he was to be executed, she set the castle ablaze. She had such a lust for revenge. Who perished in that castle? Countless lives burned away that day, trapped in the inferno she caused. Tragically, Oshichi herself would be lost to the flame as well, as the castle burned to the ground. Since then, the spirit of Oshichi is said to haunt Hirosaki Castle, seeking solace and eternal reunion with her lost love. Visitors have reported encountering her ghostly figure, a pale and ethereal apparition clad in tattered robes wandering the castle's grounds. Her mournful wails piercing the silence of the night, echoing the empty halls, leaving those who hear it trembling with fear. Now, souls far braver than I have ventured into the castle's depths and have experienced chilling things. Sounds of footsteps footsteps that appear to be coming from nowhere but following them, a cold gust of wind that tickles the back of their necks, and an overwhelming feeling of being unwatched by unseen eyes, shadowy figures flickering in the corner of your vision. Some visitors have even claimed to witness the sight of flames dancing in empty rooms, a ghostly reminder of the tragedy that unfolded centuries ago. I'm certainly not brave enough to visit Hirosaki Castle, but if you are, definitely check it out. I just recommend you know exactly where the fire exits are before you go, just in case. If it happened once, it might happen again. That's all I'm saying. Number 3, they're expanding. The most secret building in the world is getting bigger, slowly but surely each year, and no one on the outside knows why. And they're doing it the way they do everything, which is to say clandestinely and not telling nobody nothing. They've been expanding the area surrounding the base, buying up swaths of land to assimilate inside of it. From what can be observed, new hangars and new runways are being built. But, you know, again, it's impossible to ascertain what for because everything revolving around this building is top level clearance. So we only have wild mass guessing to go on. Obviously they're building more hangars because they're collecting more UFOs. I mean, what else could it really be? I'm a guy on a YouTube channel, I'm a trusted news source. They hit a bed of a snag in 2015 when the mass of land they were swallowing up was owned by a family who'd held the land for the past century. They refused their offers to give it up, and the Air Force offered the family $5.9 million. But the family wanted to hold out for more as they felt it wasn't a good enough offer. And honestly, it's the US Air Force. We know they've got the money. Spring a little for it. It's not the first time the secretive base has grown. When it was first established in 1955, it was a little over 6 by 10 miles. But these days, the base has become so large, it's now 4,500 square miles across. Area 51 is getting big enough to be its own state. It's bigger than Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Delaware, the 3 best states. I can't tell you what they're doing or what they need all that space for, but it does keep me awake wondering.
Number 2, there is a presidential declaration exempting them from turning over classified materials. In the United States, an organization can be forced to disclose classified information for a variety of reasons. As an example, if the Environmental Protection Agency believes that an organization is disposing of toxic waste in a way that goes against local hazardous laws, they can order that organization to turn over relevant materials, classified or not, in order to aid in the EPA's investigation. On September 29, 1995, President Bill Clinton signed a presidential determination exempting Area 51 from these laws. As Clinton stated in his determination, "I find that it is in the paramount interest of the United States to exempt the United States Air Force's operating location near Groom Lake, Nevada, from any applicable requirement for the disclosure to unauthorized persons of classified information concerning that operating location. Therefore, pursuant to 42 U.S.C., I hereby exempt the Air Force's operating location near Groom Lake, Nevada from any federal, state, interstate, or local provision respecting control and abatement of solid waste or hazardous waste disposal that would require the disclosure of classified information concerning that operating location to any unauthorized person." This determination has to be renewed by the president every year, and we know for a fact that the next president, George W. Bush, chose to uphold and renew it, making this a rare example of bipartisanship.
They cover up a lot. Now look, this whole video we've been talking about everything they cover up, but it goes so much deeper than you know. You might think working at Area 51 would be your way into learning all the secrets the base has to offer. You know, pick up a broom, sweep something up, learn about the aliens. But you might be saddened to know even those with top-level clearance are still kept in the dark on just about everything. In the 90s, there was a bit of a controversy when several lower-level Area 51 workers tried to file a suit against Area 51 because exposure to the black site's hazardous materials was making them sick. Apparently, the base would have stacks of discarded equipment, scraps, and hazardous waste left around in open trenches the size of football fields, and then to dispose of them, workers would cover them in jet fuel and light it on fire, leading to toxic smoke blowing all throughout the base. Definitely sounds very safe. This smog was affectionately nicknamed London Fog by the workers in between bouts of coughing fits. Several workers came down with skin conditions or respiratory conditions from their time working the black site. But where things get curious is that they don't even know what was being burned around them. And when the workers tried to file their lawsuit, the base refused to clarify or even acknowledge what had been burned. In fact, the government outright refused to even acknowledge the name of the base, as up until 2013, they still pretended the thing didn't exist at all and were very careful in all official documentation to avoid saying the name of it ever. Did you know it wasn't even until 2013 that the base was ever officially acknowledged by a president? It was President Obama, and he was doing so in a bit of a jokey manner too. The government only acknowledged the workers after their lawyer had provided them with satellite photos of the base acquired from a dubious source. Whatever was being burned there was pretty serious stuff. I mean, we can only speculate. Plasma recovered from a Type 52 troop carrier? Ectoplasm? Unobtainium? We may never know. And that's what makes me want to know.
At number 5, the Ohio State Reformatory. The Ohio State Reformatory, a haunting architectural marvel that carries within its walls the echoes of a troubled past. Constructed in the late 19th century, this imposing Victorian Gothic structure was initially intended to embody progressive correctional ideals. However, over time, it became synonymous with stories of despair, shuddering, and unexplained phenomena, solidifying its reputation as one of the most haunted places in the United States. The reformatory's history is rife with tales of harsh conditions, overcrowding, and the struggles of those who were incarcerated within its confines. These factors, coupled with the tragic stories of inmates who lived and died there, have contributed to the pervasive sense of unease that envelops the site. Visitors often report strange occurrences, such as unexplained footsteps echoing through the empty halls, eerie whispers that seem to float on the air, and chilling cold spots that hint at otherworldly presences. In some cases, there have even been disappearances and killings, alluding to the dark spectral forces that inhabit the reformatory. One of the most famous aspects of the Ohio State Reformatory is its appearance in the movie The Shawshank Redemption. While the film highlighted the reformatory's grim atmosphere, its true history is far richer and more complex. The architecture itself tells a tale of a bygone era, with its intricate detailing and imposing structure standing as a stark contrast to the stories of suffering that unfolded within its walls. Guided tours and events at the reformatory allow visitors to explore its various sections, from the imposing cell blocks to the eerie solitary confinement area, known as the Hole, creating an immersive experience that evokes a sense of timelessness. The stark contrast between the ornate exterior and the haunting interior serves as a poignant reminder of the complex and often troubling history that defines the reformatory. While some may dismiss claims of paranormal activity as mere superstition, the stories and experiences recounted by those who have visited the Ohio State Reformatory are difficult to ignore. The combination of a somber history, decaying architecture, and the mysterious ambience that permeates the air makes for an unforgettable experience that lingers long after the visit is over. Number 4. Molly Stark Sanatorium. The former Molly Stark Hospital, located in Molly Stark Park in Ohio, is a haunting relic of a bygone era. Once a treatment center for tuberculosis patients, the decaying building exudes a ghoulish aura, with vines snaking over ancient brick, shattered windows, and faded stone. Closed for over 2 decades, the hospital's dilapidated state has attracted ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts, leading to the erection of a barbed wire fence to deter trespassers. Owned by the Stark County Park District, the property offers public tours to its exterior, revealing intricate architectural details and a fascinating history. The hospital, originally constructed in 1929 at a cost of around $1 million, treated tuberculosis patients until the 1970s, and later served as a mental health facility and a rehabilitation center for those suffering with addiction. The tour provides insights into the hospital's architectural flourishes, including a portico and stone-carved religious symbols, reflective of the faith that played a role in caring for those afflicted by tuberculosis. The hospital's conditions quickly began to decline in the mid-1970s, after reports of ghost sightings within the hospital. Patients and staff alike bore witness to the likes of victims of tuberculosis, despite the fact that treatment for the illness was invented 20 years prior. These now-deceased patients were known to disrupt medical examinations, cause mass hysteria among patients and staff, and even cause many disappearances within the hospital. The amount of distress these apparitions caused eventually led to the hospital's closure in 1995. Nowadays, the site's haunted reputation draws curiosity seekers, but the tour focused mostly on the building's history rather than the many ghosts that still scuffle about the old hospital.
Number 3 on this list is mutant experiments. Aliens are obviously the first thing that we think about when it comes to Area 51, but maybe there are some other strange creatures that are hiding at this base. If you've ever seen the show Stranger Things or are regular on videos like this, then I imagine you've probably heard of the project MK Ultra. If you haven't, then this was an illegal project conducted by the CIA starting in the 50s to try and wield the power of mind control. Through a series of horrible experiments, the CIA would take people, often give them large amounts of hallucinogens, and then subject them to forms of psychological torture. Lots of the people that took part in these experiments were horribly scarred for life, and most of them never recovered. This whole process broke so many human rights violations and really was not a good look for the American government. They eventually stopped in the 70s, and when this info was finally released to the public, faced some pretty bad backlash because of it. Experiments of this nature may not be happening anymore, but many have speculated that something similar could very easily be going on at Area 51. In 2018, new documents were released about MKUltra, and it showed that the CIA had 6 dogs run, then stop, then all turn around and run back, all from implanting brain chips in them. Is it possible that something similar is going on here, where maybe they're making some mutant controllable animal? What about experiments involving humans that the government doesn't want reaching the public? If they've done it before, then there's no reason to think that they aren't capable of doing it now. Maybe these experiments don't involve mind control, but potentially taking some characteristics of an animal and putting them into a human. We've seen over the past decades a growing interest in mutant animals, so there's no reason to think that one bright scientist wouldn't want to try this with people as well. We obviously don't know for sure, but a secluded, secretive base in the desert is pretty much the perfect spot to perform mutant experiments if you ever were to do such a thing. Number 2 on this list is the Roswell incident. According to Wikipedia, the Roswell incident is the 1947 recovery of balloon debris from a ranch near Corona, New Mexico by United States Army Air Forces officers from Roswell Army Airfield, and the conspiracy theories decades later claiming that the debris involved a flying saucer and that the truth had been covered up by the United States government. Well, many people believe that this apparent flying saucer is currently residing in Area 51. This is what you've heard about Area 51 for. This is where it's got its big name: alien tech. This site is used as a secret base to investigate alien technology. This alien tech is getting regularly tested and experimented with by the government at this site. Some believe that America got these UFOs, brought them to this site, and now are trying to reconstruct them and use that technology to build their own advanced spacecraft. Whether the spaceships that they're in possession of have advanced weaponry on them, that's unknown, but one has to imagine that they would contribute to warfare in some capacity. One also has to imagine that if America got access to flying saucers in 1947, that they've probably succeeded by now in their attempts at remanufacturing said flying saucers. Who knows what sort of crazy otherworldly tech is being stored in Area 51 that is super top secret? How much does the government actually know about extraterrestrial life that they aren't telling you? I can't say for sure, but I'd hedge my bets that the answers are in that base. Number 1 on this list is aliens. We just talked about how they probably have alien tech chilling in Area 51. Well, how about the actual extraterrestrials who made that tech? Many people believe that Area 51 is not only a spot for testing alien equipment, but also a holding spot for any aliens that the government has come into contact with. It's very likely that these aliens are already dead, but I also don't see why it wouldn't be possible for them to potentially have some of these aliens alive and just locked up. Having alien life locked up in a very secret base is something that you wouldn't want getting out to the public, but it isn't just humans you'd need to worry about. If this is true, and this info was confirmed and then leaked to the public, well, I can only imagine the species of alien that our prisoner belongs to would want to get their friend back. If they were intelligent enough to get to this planet with supposed advanced technology, then we can only assume that they're a superior being to us. Having a superior being pissed off with the entirety of the human race probably isn't the best idea and something that should be avoided at all costs. Also, even if this alien's friends didn't care and just left their buddy behind, well, the panic and chaos that this would cause in the world would be insane. One would have to assume that other countries would be demanding to investigate the alien for themselves, that the global public would want answers and would be irate if we didn't get them, that people would start to lose their minds worrying about the possibility of aliens attacking the planet. It makes perfect sense why the American government wouldn't want people to know about such a thing. And honestly, when I think about it more, maybe ignorance truly is bliss when it comes to Area 51.
Number 5, the Castle of Good Hope. Coming up first on our list of haunted hotspots is going to be the Castle of Good Hope in Cape Town, South Africa. It was first built in the 17th century by the Dutch East India Company, so you just know there's bad vibes there to begin with. It's the oldest colonial building in South Africa, and if you believe the local legends, it's allegedly one of the most paranormal spots in the country. The first reported paranormal sighting from the castle came from 1915, when a tall, pale, mysterious man dressed in black, he sounds familiar, whose attire didn't match the era at all, country or anything, appeared seemingly out of nowhere, walking alongside one of the castle's ramparts before vanishing as soon as he appeared. Now that's pretty weird, definitely, not quite enough to label a place haunted, but it was a one-off incident, right? Well, in 1947, this same strange man kept appearing, making regular visits for weeks on end. He'd be jumping off the castle's walls, seemingly plummeting to his doom, only to reappear again to do it all again. I gotta be honest, he sounds kinda sick, all things considered. Sounds like he just wants to bungee jump and vibe out as a ghost. Another popular story from the castle is that of former governor, one Peter Giesbert van Noot. Whew, you try saying that 5 times fast. He passed in the castle on the 23rd of April, 1728, the same day he had sentenced 7 army deserters to the death sentence. The legend has it that one of these soldiers hexed him and demanded he face him and watch the execution. Van Noot was apparently a bit squeamish and refused the invitation, and later that day was found dead at his desk, slumped over. And some believe his ghost still wanders the castle's halls. And there were more ghosts I couldn't even fit into this one video because there's so many hauntings from this place. I recommend you read up about it afterwards. And if you want way more videos about haunted spots, ghosts, goblins, aliens, cryptids, conspiracies, true stories, fake stories, we got all of that and then some. So click through on Top 5 Scary, find something to watch, something to fall asleep to, I don't judge. Stay subscribed, stay scared, but stay watching this video. We worked hard on it. Alright, moving on through. Number 4, the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. Maybe this one's a bit of an obvious pick, but our next entry is going to be the infamous Chernobyl Exclusion Zone, the real-life post-apocalyptic wasteland of Pripyat. Have you ever heard the word Canopsia? Maybe not. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I only learned this word today. But it refers to a feeling of seeing an atmosphere that you know is supposed to be populated, but isn't. And I feel like that word definitely applies to Chernobyl, or like liminal is a very good feeling too. It is kind of a liminal space because you see all of these buildings and you can imagine a life happening there, but it's frozen in time. The Chernobyl blast would be enough to cover a whole video and then some. I heard there was a very good HBO series about it. And trying to cover it in under 2 minutes would be foolhardy, so here's the super quick Coles Note versions, is that a late night safety test simulating a station blackout power failure ended up starting a huge blast, which eventually threw radioactive material that blew all over Pripyat and the surrounding areas, causing everyone to have to pick up everything and evacuate, never to return. 50,000 people used to live here, and now it's a ghost town. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I only know that line from COD 4. All gillied up, best level in the series. That one's just for my gamers out there. Now you can actually visit Chernobyl, although they don't really recommend you do. You know, it's not a fun hotspot for tourism or anything. People who delve into the zone for recreation, or to find things, are called stalkers, named after the Tarkovsky movie of the same name, revolving around visits to a strange zone, and not the video game Stalker, where bandits raid the apocalyptic zone, although you would be forgiven for thinking that. Visiting the zone is no easy task. For one, it's recommended that you absolutely go with a guide or someone who knows the area very well, and then come all the requirements. You mustn't touch anything whatsoever. No vegetation. There are wild dogs that live in Chernobyl, and they're very cute, but you can't touch them at all because there could be traces of radiation in their fur. You have to wear an outfit that covers as much as possible. Big boots, you know, don't show up in your sunners and flip-flops. They recommend wearing a mask too to avoid inhaling any dust or, you know, any of the radioactive particles that could still be floating around in the air. Real life radiation, not half as fun as the comic books. You are very unlikely to come out of here with any web-slinging superpowers. More likely just gonna have a bad cough and, you know, your family's gonna get real sad. You're asked not to enter any buildings because some are so degraded that they could collapse literally at any minute with the wrong pressure applied somewhere, and then you're just another tragedy. Now, I've never been, but from pictures, Chernobyl genuinely seems unreal, like it's not part of the world, you know? It seems like it's something out of a movie or a video game, but it's this harrowing, soul-crushing reflection of our reality, a stark warning on the dangers of nuclear power, and a grim reminder that your life as you know it can be upended forever in but a moment. Number 3, the Forbidden City. The Forbidden City. Well, that tracks. That sounds very forbidden. Well, back in the 14th century, when it stood as the heart of the Ming dynasty and served as an imperial palace, yeah, you'd have a pretty difficult time getting access if you were but a common serf like myself. But I think they've relaxed their stance just a little bit, because I found more than a few Google recommended articles for tourist things to do in the Forbidden City. I think they just charge like price of admission now, so it's actually very easy to get into the Forbidden City, and the Chinese government does know about this. So the formerly Forbidden City, which is not quite as catchy a name, is a beautiful tourist spot and definitely worth checking out. It's got years upon years of culture and rich history behind it, and most importantly, it's said to be very haunted. The Forbidden City is a pretty credible place for a haunting, if I must say. Ghosts are said to be born out of a place of malice, and the Forbidden City has over 600 years of deaths, assassinations, and who knows how many backstabs and plot twists where the intrigue are out there. The most recurring ghost story coming out of the Forbidden City, though, is that there's a ghost of a weeping woman, all dressed in white, wandering during the dark hours. Following her is a lingering flute playing. Visitors claim at times they see ghost dogs that run through corridors at the edge of the city, digging up ghost bones. Some travelers report feeling an indescribable strangeness while wandering through the temples. Could it just be they're overcome with beauty and majesty of one of the wonders of the world, or is there spectral energy floating through the air? Before we move off on this one, I want you to take a look at this. A travel blog from Vancouver posted about their experiences traveling through the Imperial City. They noted how odd it was that all the doorways had a raised platform. The guide told them that was a way to confuse ghosts to keep them out. They took tons of photos, but only one stood out for them when they came back. See anything suspicious? Like a ghostly figure just kinda hanging right there in the center? Ugh. Number 2, Dead Fengmin Village. Coming up next on this list is going to be Fengmin Village. Fengmin Village is sometimes known as Dead Fengmin's Village, which is not exactly the most welcoming name you want to hear, but there's a pretty good reason for it though. The village itself is about as dead as a village can be, long abandoned by an unknown tribe. It's located in the valley of a nameless mountain in northern China's Henan province. An abandoned city left in a nameless mountain. It seems like it's the start of a chosen one, like heroic journey out there, start of a quest. The surrounding landscape is supposedly quite beautiful. A flowing brook, a lush forestry and trees, and buildings from the Qing dynasty. 39 buildings, 200 rooms, all of them left completely vacant. And the weird part? No one even knows why. There is extremely little information to be found on Fengmin Village. Who lived there, what happened to them, and so on, making it absolutely rife for urban legends of hauntings and ghosts. It's a fairly popular spot for backpackers and hikers with an interest in the supernatural who are looking to discover something in the lost village. One story tells of a hiker named Maitreya who would make expeditions out to Fengmin Village, camping alongside the river just outside with a few companions. On one of his treks, he got the bright idea in the middle of the night to prank his companions by jumping and scaring them, which, let me just say, I absolutely have to respect that. You're camping out in an abandoned ghost village, you have to seize the opportunity to prank your friends just a little bit. Well, before he got a chance, he got served up his own scare, because he swears a discordant, sad-sounding voice kept calling his name out over and over, in a voice he said he couldn't recognize or had never heard before. And none of his friends had any idea what he was talking about. At number 1, Chaonai 81. Our next entry is Chaonai number 81, a building that has a fairly notable reputation, being listed as the most haunted building in Beijing. It's Beijing's most famous haunted house. The ghost most commonly reported in this house is that of a woman who was the wife of an officer in the National Revolutionary Army during the Chinese Civil War in the late 1940s. He had fled to Taiwan with his compatriots before the end of the war and left his precious wife behind. Naturally, she was pretty upset about this. She was despondent. She felt that without her husband, she had nothing left to live for and thusly took her own life. And her spirit has been trapped in the house ever since. Residents who live around the area claim that during thunderstorms you can hear shrill, violent screaming coming from inside the house. Visitors report that walking into the house immediately, you feel a cold chill come over you and a feeling of inescapable dread. Not good. Not good to feel those things. There's stories of people going inexplicably missing connected to this mysterious house. One notable story is that of a British priest who is said to have initially built the property to serve as a church who went missing shortly before it was finished. When an investigation was launched to look for him, they supposedly discovered a secret tunnel that led to a neighborhood in the northeast, and the priest's body was never discovered. Now, another story was that 3 construction workers in the basement of a neighboring building weren't paying attention to what they were doing and broke through a thin wall leading into building 81. They went through the hole and the 3 of them vanished. And now there are people who conspire that this event is what led the government to cancel its plans to demolish the building for fear that it might be haunted. And it hasn't been yet because it's still standing there, and you're more than welcome to visit. You can take a guided ghost tour if you're feeling brave enough, and hopefully you come back.
Number 5 on this list is Sinkhole Sam. The legend of Sinkhole Sam originated many years ago in Kansas. Sinkhole Sam is said to live in Inman Lake, or as the locals call it, the sinkhole. It's believed to be a 15-foot long serpent-like creature that is as round, and I quote, as an automobile tire. The people who claim that this serpent was 15 feet and round like an automobile tire are Albert Newfield and George Rager, 2 witnesses of the beast. These men are some of the many people who have stumbled upon this creature and have spoken out about it. Based on the reports, people believe that Sinkhole Sam is a type of prehistoric serpent that has managed to survive over the years. Now, back before Kansas was even colonized, there were lakes and rivers all over the terrain, making it a perfect spot for an animal like this to survive. As time went on, the area dried up and locals believe that Sinkhole Sam took up residence in Inman Lake. As the years have passed though, the sightings of Sam at Inman Lake have been fewer and farther between. However, the sightings of a similar creature at the Kingman State Lake have grown. This lake isn't too far from Inman Lake either, only 50 miles. 50 miles is certainly a long distance to go, but maybe not for a massive serpent like Sam. Sinkhole Sam, in my opinion, is one of the most likely creatures to actually exist. Unlike other sea beasts that are very far from any living animals that we have in our world, Sinkhole Sam, from most accounts, is just a big snake. I think it's super possible that someone has spotted a massive snake over the years in that lake, and through word of mouth, the story has been exaggerated over the time to become the legend of Sinkhole Sam. Now, if Sam is real, then we should all be in the clear, because even though a 15-foot serpent may be terrifying, there have been no reported attacks from Sinkhole Sam on humans since the legend began. Number 4 on this list is Leviathan melville. This ancient beast is aptly named after the Leviathan due to its incredible size. This is a monstrous whale that grew from 45 feet to 60 feet in length. It has the largest teeth from any animal used to eat the world has ever seen, reaching a length of 1.18 feet. Their heads were 10 feet long and their jaws were absolutely massive. Similar to Megalodon, these creatures are long extinct and lived roughly 12 million years ago. Also, similarly to Megalodon, they had the exact same diet as the massive shark, whales. That's right guys, this massive whale ate other smaller whales. Also, because it was competing for the same food source as Megalodon, it's not unrealistic to think that those 2 creatures would have fought several times. And before I go any further about this beast, comment down below who you have in a fight, Megalodon or this Leviathan of whales. I want to know who you guys got. Anyways, over the years we've seen many legends about massive whales that were extremely aggressive. Moby Dick is one of the most famous stories of all time and features a massive whale. This creature, however, would have put Moby Dick to shame and potentially would have even had it for lunch. Also, after it was finished eating Moby Dick, it would have happily eaten Captain Ahab and completely demolished his whaling ship. A lot of other entries on this list have had some reported sightings and witnesses, but this one we have real fossils to prove its actual existence. I've personally always been a fan of whales. In fact, an orca whale is my favorite animal in the whole world, but making an orca whale 60 feet with massive teeth is what we have here, and that might be a bit too much for me if I'm being honest.
Swinging in next at number 3, Derinkuyu Underground City. And if things weren't already crazy enough, what if I told you that there is an ancient, highly advanced underground complex carved beneath the central Anatolian city of Derinkuyu in Turkey that is believed to have been large enough to have sheltered up to 20,000 people and more than likely connects several other similar underground complexes across the ancient historical site of Cappadocia. Yeah. My thoughts exactly. I don't even know where to begin with this one, because as the eons of time have slowly shifted by, countless people have taken shelter within Derinkuyu, using it as their home across the ages, and because of that, it's incredibly difficult to pinpoint just exactly when it was built. Its purpose, however, is relatively clear. It's a multi-level city built underground, carved from the soft volcanic rock of the region. It consists of 18 stories that descend deep into the earth, comprised of sophisticated carved shafts that house the complex's his multitude of amenities: communal rooms, wine cellars, oil presses, stables, even entire chapels. Each floor of the city can be closed off by a series of large stone doors, which in theory makes it some kind of ancient underground bunker given the other facilities gathered over time. Historically speaking, the Phrygians of the 8th century BCE were the first alleged inhabitants of the vast underground city, although the fact of the matter remains, we may never truly know who built this place. Scholars have given many suggestions, primarily being a sect of the ancient Persians or the Hittites, but I'm not entirely sure. Put a pin in this one because there are many more secrets to be learned from this. Next up at number 2, Nan Madol. And what if I told you that this place in particular was the source of inspiration for none other than H.P. Lovecraft's sunken city of R'lyeh? As in, yes, in his house at R'lyeh, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming. That one. But if that's not impressive enough, the ancient megalithic architecture of Nan Madol, just off the coast of the island of Phnom, which is part of the remote islands of Micronesia, are something else entirely. And really, I don't know what to think when it comes to trying to decipher the eternal enigma that is Nan Madol, often referred to as the 8th wonder of the world. There's a reason it has left archaeologists scratching their heads ever since its rediscovery in the early 19th century. Now, carbon dating has indicated that the construction of the massive basalt stones of Nan Madol began sometime in 1180 AD, although many scholars find umbrage with this, given the fact that to move these giant hunks of rock from tiny island to tiny island and then carve them into a series of intricate channels and platforms is a feat in and of itself. Its purpose is somewhat clear though. Nan Madol appeared to have housed the ruling elite caste of the ancient Sudilair dynasty of Phnom, where it was used as a political and ceremonial seat of power, essentially housing a vast network of small floating platforms and islands that formed into a rich, majestic capital city carved from black stone. Yeah, I don't want to make any assumptions, but there are many more answers to be revealed by Nan Madol, and it's no wonder that Lovecraft himself found an ancient kind of inspiration from it. And finally, coming in at our number 1 spot, the Sahama Lines. And whilst you more than definitely have probably already heard of the Nazca Lines of Peru, I'm going to go one further and highlight the equally perplexing mystery that is the Sahama Lines of Western Bolivia, because boy oh boy are these things a head scratcher. The Sahama Lines are a network of thousands, possibly tens of thousands of perfectly straight paths that were etched into the ground by the indigenous peoples of the Americas for more than 3,000 years that were situated near the volcano of Sahama. Unlike the Nazca Lines though, this particular network covers an area of over 22,500 square kilometers, which is approximately 15 times larger than their counterparts in Peru. And what are they? Well, no one knows, and we may never know, but what is clear is the startling precision in which they were made. These thousands of individual lines, each 3 to 10 feet in width, are almost perfectly straight, mile after mile, despite the ever-changing rugged terrain of the highlands, which would have been quite a feat for modern humanity, never mind an ancient indigenous people without the means to advance construction techniques. These geoglyphs were most likely created through the process of scraping away the dark, oxidized rock of the volcanic surface to reveal a lighter sediment beneath. You see, despite all of these enigmas of ancient history, the real question is, why did these people go to such lengths of time and effort to create them? What were their intentions of preservation? Who would have seen them or used them? Now, there are many leading theories, the most prominent of which is that the Sahama Lines were used as a pilgrimage route to a series of sacred sites, but yeah, I have no idea. I really have no idea. I mean, I want to know, but will we ever?
Number 5 on this list is the Loch Ness Monster. Nessie, as many people refer to this creature, is said to be a huge, long-necked, almost dinosaur-looking creature that lives in Scotland. This creature of the deep specifically resides in Loch Ness, a 37-kilometer loch located in the Scottish Highlands. The legend of this sea creature went worldwide back in 1933. A photo was released to the public showing a strange creature's head protruding from the water of Loch Ness. The world went into a frenzy after that photo got out and the legend of Nessie began. Ever since that point, many sightings have been reported, other pictures have been taken, and even sonar readings have indicated this creature swimming in the loch. All of that being said though, we've never had indisputable proof that Nessie's real. Well, I'm here to tell you that Nessie is real, but maybe not how you expect. New Zealand scientists have taken samples of the water in Loch Ness and have studied the DNA that they found in it. Professor Neil Gamel, a geneticist, is quoted saying, "Well, our data doesn't reveal their size, but the sheer quantity of the material that says we can't discount the possibility that there may be giant eels in Loch Ness. Therefore, we can't discount the possibility that what people see and believe is the Loch Ness Monster might be a giant eel." So the Loch Ness Monster, as we understand it, might not be real, but potentially this loch is full of giant eels that resemble all of the features that Nessie's reported as having. Maybe this is why we've had such a hard time proving this myth, because for years people have been looking for the wrong thing. I really like the legend of the Loch Ness Monster and honestly want it to be true, but if it had to be giant eels, then I think I could accept that as well. Number 4 on this list is the USS Stein Monster. The USS Stein was a Knox-class destroyer ship in the United States Navy. The ship was eventually decommissioned from the American Navy and was transferred to the Mexican Navy in the 90s. That wasn't before it was attacked by a massive sea monster though. In 1978, the USS Stein was attacked by an unknown entity which we now refer to as the USS Stein Monster. This monster was said to have been a giant, with some people estimating its size up to 150 feet in length. The ship was sailing in the Pacific Ocean when it was attacked. Technical difficulties with the ship started going wrong and eventually they brought it back into the port. Upon inspection, the sonar system was completely damaged. There were cuts and gashes over 8% of the ship, with some of them being massively deep. They also found suction cups like those of a squid attached to the ship. After investigation of the suction cups and the gashes, it became clear that what they were attacked by isn't your standard animal. Even a giant squid would have had a hard time doing what the monster did to the ship. Ever since that point, the legend of the USS Stein Monster has grown. Obviously, this monster has to be real because it has actually attacked a ship. Sadly, we don't know a whole lot about it though. In truth, we know less about what's on the ocean floor than we do about the surface of the moon. So it's very possible that a creature we aren't familiar with yet is dwelling down there.
At number 3, the Hanging Coffins. In the remote mountain town of Sagada, a chilling testament to ancient rituals and the enigma of death hangs suspended in the misty air. The Hanging Coffins of Sagada stand as a solemn testament to a practice shrouded in mystique, a sight that both fascinates and unnerves, embodying a profound connection between life, death, and the sacred. Seems to be a lot of hanging objects this episode. Nestled high upon limestone cliffs on the outskirts of the village, these eerie coffins defy gravity, seemingly tethered to the rock face by an otherworldly force. Their presence evokes a somber reminder of the Cordilleran traditions that have endured for generations, a tradition where the deceased are placed in coffins, often carved from hollowed out logs, and suspended on precipitous cliffs to bring them closer to the spirits and the heavens. Approaching this site, one can't help but feel a sense of reverence mixed with trepidation. The air is heavy with the weight of centuries, and the wind carries with it echoes of ancient chants and prayers. The coffins, swaying gently in the breeze, serve as a poignant reminder of the fragility of existence. Reminder that even in death, our connection to the world endures. The cliffside cemetery stands as a silent congregation of souls, each coffin etching a story of a life once lived, a tale that becomes intertwined with the very landscape that cradles them. It's a sight that ignites the imagination, prompting thoughts of the rituals, beliefs, and ceremonies that once accompanied these solemn placements. As the sun sets over the horizon, casting an amber glow upon the hanging coffins, one can almost feel the spirits of the departed drawing near, a presence that transcends reason. It's a place where the barrier between the living and the dead becomes tantalizingly thin, where the echoes of ages past resound like the ringing of a distant bell. Speaking of bells, why don't you guys subscribe and press the notification bell if you're enjoying the video? Just a thought. Let's take a trip to Japan for number 2, Scarecrow Village. In the hidden valleys of Shikoku, Japan, a village lies frozen in a paradoxical tableau of the eerie and the quaint. Nagoro, often referred to as the Scarecrow Village, exudes an aura of unsettling mystery, where straw-filled figures stand as eerie sentinels, guarding secrets that lie beneath the surface, their unsettling appearance striking terror into the hearts of passerbys and locals alike. Approaching Nagoro is like stepping into a nightmarish realm that lies on the fringes of reality. The scarecrows, twisted and contorted into eerie facsimiles of human life, populate every nook and cranny of the village. They leer from windows, hunch over fields, and gather in unsettling congregations as if in some twisted ritual. Their presence is suffocating, a constant reminder that in Nagoro, there is always someone or something watching you. In the fading light, the scarecrows take on an eldritch quality, their straw forms casting elongated, contorted shadows that writhe and twist like tortured souls. And as night descends, a sense of impending doom envelops Nagoro as the simulacrums of straw disappear into the darkness. And trust me, when you're in Nagoro, it's a whole lot scarier not to see them them than to see them, because even if you can't see them, they can see you. Ngoro, the Scarecrow Village, beckons to those who seek to pierce the veil between the mortal and the malevolent. It is a place where the mundane has been transmuted into something sinister, where the boundary between life and death is a fragile barrier ready to be breached. Number 1. The Catacombs of Paris. Beneath the bustling veneer of Paris's grandeur, a sinister underworld waits to ensnare those who dare to venture into its Stygian depths. The Catacombs of Paris, a subterranean labyrinth woven with the threads of history and the shadows of the departed, beckon with an alluring yet chilling embrace, an invitation to confront the enigma of mortality itself. Once echoing with a cacophony of quarrying, these catacombs devolved into a sepulchral sanctuary during the late 18th century, a haunting solution to Paris's overflowing cemeteries. They became a grim receptacle for the bones of the long forgotten. Descending into the Stygian abyss is akin to stepping into the yawning maw of the abyss itself, where time has been swallowed whole and the air seems to pulse with an otherworldly heartbeat. Illuminated by mere feeble torchlight, the catacombs reveal a ghastly tapestry of the dead, an intricate symphony of stacked bones and skulls that form eerie patterns upon the walls. The corridors, lined with the remnants of countless lives, are a spectral testament to humanity's ultimate fate, a silent congregation that lingers on the precipice between the world of the living and the realm of the lost. Amidst the chilling silence, an infamous tale whispers through the catacombs, a story that has woven itself into the fabric of the labyrinth itself. The Philibert Asper incident tells of a daring cataphile, a catacomb explorer, who vanished without a trace within this subterranean maze. His torchlight flickered out, his voice was swallowed by the darkness, and his footsteps vanished into the abyss. Despite extensive searches, his fate remains a haunting mystery, a cryptic riddle that the catacombs themselves seem to guard with an eerie resolve. As you traverse the subterranean passageways, a chilling resonance permeates the air. The echoing whispers of souls long departed, their murmurs a cryptic riddle that teases the fringes of your perception. The oppressive atmosphere seems to bear witness to the weight of the secrets entombed within, leaving you with an unsettling sense of being watched by unseen eyes that linger just beyond the flickering light. The catacombs of Paris draw you into their depths, ensnaring your senses with an aura of morbid fascination. As you tread on the same ground that countless others have traversed on their final journey, a shiver courses down your spine, a spectral caress from phantoms of the past, a reminder that mortality's grip is inescapable and that the boundary between life and death is a mere veil that flutters in the darkness. Emerging from the catacombs, you carry with you the weight of an experience that defies explanation, an encounter with the mysteries that lie beneath the surface, a communion with the souls that linger in the shadows. The catacombs of Paris beckon, a cryptic siren's call that invites you to traverse the threshold into the unknown, to embrace the darkness that resides within us all, and to confront the mysteries that dwell in the subterranean depths of the human psyche.
Number 5 on this list is Pine Gap. Pine Gap is a massive military base that's hid away in the Australian outback, completely away from the public's view. It's jointly run and occupied by the American and Australian governments. The airspace over top of it is a complete no-fly zone, and the complex itself is obviously very locked off. Many of the locals have come to speak of this place as Area 51 of Australia. Now, unlike Area 51, this place hasn't been linked to aliens. It's actually been linked to a super secret, super high-tech surveillance system. At this point, it kind of feels like common knowledge that the government is occasionally peeking in on our conversations. Well, Pine Gap in Australia may be the spot that most of that happens at. Echelon was the codename given to a massive signals intelligence collection device. It's believed that this location in Australia collects this information and stores it there. Think about that. A massive site out in the middle of the outback with all of our info stored on a massive hard drives at somebody's fingertips. With over 800 people apparently employed at this base, there are 800 several individuals that know more about you than I think any of us would like. Your entire communications history is just waiting there to be revealed to the public. It's no wonder that this place isn't talked about too much, because think about how damaging it could be if that info was leaked to the public or somebody got a hold of it. The amount of secrets that could be discovered by spending an hour or two at that place is honestly difficult to comprehend. Number 4 on this list is Mchitka Island. Mchitka Island is a volcanic island that's part of the Aleutian Islands. And for those of you who aren't aware, the Aleutian Islands are a grouping of islands off of the coast of Alaska that stretch into the Pacific Ocean. Now, this place is really interesting because by all accounts, hardly anybody lives there at all. In fact, it's possible that there are no permanent residents there whatsoever. Or that's just what the government wants us to think. Tons of areas on this island just simply can't be found on Google Earth. This would probably go completely unnoticed if it wasn't for the fact that the Americans used this place as a spot for nuclear testing several decades ago. From the 50s to the 70s, this was a spot used by the American government to test out their weapons. Obviously, you don't really want the world knowing about this or seeing your capabilities, so keeping it a secret would be important. This apparently ceased in the 70s, but then it begs the question, why is it blotted out on Google Earth? Why are there sections of this island that the world can't see? Starts to make you think that maybe this isn't just an innocent Aleutian island in the Pacific Ocean, but actually a spot that never stopped testing weapons. Or if they did stop testing them, then maybe this is where they're developing them now. If I'm about to do something shady, then an island in the middle of nowhere with no permanent residents would certainly be my spot of choice. It's very possible that the American government feels the same way. Number 3 on this list is the Ryukyu Islands. These islands are a chain of islands that are located off of Japan. The islands, although they're very beautiful and have some amazing scenery, aren't really mysterious in their own right. It's what's located in the water beneath them though that has a lot of mystery and lore surrounding it. Under the water of the Ryukyu Islands are what many believe to be an Atlantis-like city. It was discovered in 1995, so very recently considering human history. At first, this ancient city was thought to be just a naturally formed monument, a rock formation that just happened to be thrown together by the earth underwater. However, as more experts looked at it, the theory that it was man-made started to gain a lot of traction. It's a mysterious pyramid-looking structure that nobody can really explain. Nobody knows how it got there or what it was used for, if it was man-made. Also, think about it if it actually was man-made like people are suggesting. Either we made it underwater, which makes absolutely no sense at all, or we made it so long ago that the water levels rose over top of it. Meaning that we're talking about something thousands and thousands of years old. What the heck were these people building here thousands and thousands of years ago, and why were they doing it? Number 2 on this list is the Mustang Caves. These are absolutely wild caves and really don't make a lot of sense. Tripoto says, being one of the world's greatest archaeological mysteries, the Mustang Caves lie in one of the most remote and isolated regions in the Himalayas. The landscape is unlike anything else found in Nepal, with strangely sculptured rock formations comprised of nearly 10,000 den openings perched more than 150 feet above the ground. It's unknown who dug them, since whoever did would have had to scale a near vertical rock to do so, a task almost impossible to accomplish by even experienced climbers. No one knows what their purpose was either, with theories ranging from living quarters to burial chambers. A visit to this mysterious spot will definitely leave you amazed and equally confused. These caves literally make zero sense, guys. It is straight up a cave inside of a mountain. Like, how on earth do you get to that place on the mountain of the cliff face to begin with, and then once you're there, how do you dig a massive hole to get these caves? Explorers have found mummified bodies in these caves before that can be dated back to 3,000 years ago. That is a long time ago when people wouldn't have presumably had the technology capable of constructing things like this. There's also been a lot of sculptures, paintings, and other things found in these caves. However, none of what has been found indicates which group is responsible for making these things in the first place. They also don't know why they're there either. It's possible that these were just burial sites, but it also seems like overkill to build these cliff caves for just something like that. Others have speculated that these spots are used to practice advanced tantric yoga, or back in the day, perform some sort of ancient rituals. It's likely that we won't ever know the full purpose. And number 1 on this list is Fengdu. Fengdu, or better known as the City of Ghosts, is one of the most spiritually connected places in the world. Atlas Obscura says, the city has been around for nearly 2,000 years, filling it with a spooky sense of the past. Its origin story begins back in the Han Dynasty, when 2 officials decided to run away to the area and live out their lives, where they eventually, the story goes, became immortal. Yin and Wang, the names of the officials, were combined during a later dynasty to mean King of the Underworld. Most of the popular landmarks in the City of Ghosts have names that reference the afterlife. Last Glance at Home Tower, Nothing to be Done Bridge, Ghost Torturing Pass. Covering the sites are statues and other artistic depictions of ghosts and devils, terrifying works that represent what happens to those who haven't lived good lives after theirs is taken from them. Less popular, but no less fascinating, is the theme park haunted house made to represent the terrors within the afterlife, complete with neon paint and vendors hawking scream masks alongside an alleyway. The giant face seen in the hill is called the Ghost King, and it holds the Guinness World Records title as the biggest sculpture carved on a rock. At 138 meters tall and about 217 meters wide, the Ghost King can be seen from all around the city. It's believed that every single person who dies must pass through this city before reaching the full afterlife. In this city are 3 tests for these souls. Wikipedia says that first they must pass the Bridge of Helplessness. This stone bridge was built during the Ming Dynasty and is a test for good and evil. It has 3 arches and only the middle one is used for testing people. There are different protocols for crossing the bridge depending on sex, age, marital status. At the bridge, demons allow or forbid passage. The good are allowed to pass, while the evil will be pushed to the water below. This is now done as a tourist attraction, and performers characterized as demons momentarily stop tourists on the bridge, but finally allow them access. Then the dead must proceed to Ghost Torturing Pass, where they present themselves for judgment before Yanlao Wang. This is the second test. In this area, there are large sculptures of demons. The third test is done at the entrance of Tianzi Palace, where the dead must stand on a certain stone on 1 foot for 3 minutes. According to legend, a virtuous person will be able to do it, while an evil person will fail and be condemned to hell. Clearly a super mysterious spot that you probably weren't supposed to see until you die.
Number 5. Getting in is impossible. Area 51 didn't get a reputation as one of the most secretive places in America because it was easy to get into. And there's a reason our best idea for getting a peek inside was to just swarm the place en masse and hope that there'd be too many of us to stop. The thing is, they saw that coming. Mostly because we broadcasted it and made Facebook groups about it and it was a big meme, but as well, the entire surrounding area around Area 51 is completely surveyed. Armed soldiers patrol the perimeter at all times, and they watch the airspace up above, so no dropping in Fortnite style either. Up until 2018, you couldn't even get a good look at it from satellite imagery since it was censored on Google Earth. Now some conspiracists say there's cameras hidden in the surrounding countryside in the rocks, and I honestly believe that. They keep an eye on everything that goes on the main road. You want to know how seriously they take security at Area 51? Those employed at Area 51 fly in from McCarran International, as there's no commuter traffic allowed. I'm guessing all the parking spaces are taken up by UFO parking. Employees fly in from a secret airline called Janet Airlines, an acronym which funnily enough stands for just another non-existent terminal. Janet may be America's most secretive airline. Anyone working it needs top level clearance. That's everybody working it. Even the flight attendants need to be cleared for top level clearance. Just in case they overhear a man in black suits talking about the Type 25 plasma pistol they recovered off the crash site of the Kig-Yar Scout they found just outside of Roswell, they know not to report that to anybody. Now, no word on whether or not Janet Airlines contributes to air miles, but I have to imagine their frequent flyer reward program is pretty impressive.
Number 4, employees are paid in cash. In 2010, some of the secrets about Area 51 were declassified, and former employees were able to talk about their time at the secretive military base. One of these former employees, a 72-year-old named James Nose, gave an interview about his time at Area 51 to the Seattle Times. James claimed not to have seen any UFOs or aliens, but hey, maybe that just wasn't declassified material he could talk about. The interview contains some interesting anecdotes about some US government covert ops, but what I find most interesting about the interview is his claim that several of the employees were paid in cash. He would be paid in cash, and as a result, there was no paperwork connecting him to Area 51, which is probably why my landlord also insists on being paid in cash. Other employees claimed that when they were paid by check, the checks would be from unrelated non-government companies such as Pan American. So although we don't know for sure what is being done at Area 51, we know that it is so secretive that they don't even want a record of who has worked for them.
Number 3 on this list is Ninjin. Ninjin are very strange strange mythical creatures that have only come into the limelight very recently. The rumors and legends of these creatures have largely taken place in Japan. Japanese whale research boats that are sent to the Arctic waters have reported seeing these massive 20 to 30 meter long creatures that are completely white swimming through the ocean. Now when I first heard that, I thought that these things might just be big whales, but their shape is unlike anything that we've ever seen before. These creatures are said to look almost human, with witnesses saying that they saw massive legs and arms coming from the beast. They also have eyes and a mouth, but not many other facial features from the reports. For just over the last decade, stories about Ninjin in the Antarctic waters have circulated throughout Japan. One of the most famous was when crew members on the deck of a ship saw what they thought was a submarine in the distance, but when they approached it, realized the creature was alive and watched as it dived quickly underwater. There are some photos that have surfaced on the internet, but nothing that can fully substantiate the claims of this creature's existence. It is also currently unknown if there's only one of these creatures or if there are several of them swimming around the seas. This beast, unlike some of the other creatures that we've talked about, is not just a bigger version of an already existing animal. It isn't just a big snake or a big shark, it's a completely different entity entirely. This makes me think that it would be harder for somebody to confuse a big whale with a creature like this, because a whale doesn't look anything like a ninjin. Hopefully more sightings and evidence can come to light soon, and we can get a definitive confirmation if this thing is real or not. Number 2 on this list is the Oklahoma octopus. This mythical octopus is said to inhabit some of the bigger lakes in Oklahoma, like Lake Thunderbird, Oolaga Lake, and Lake Tenkiller. The sightings indicate that this is a very large, aggressive octopus that we wouldn't want to mess with. Many deaths in these lakes have been linked to this octopus, or octopi if there are multiple of them. What's very strange about this creature, and what makes a lot of people skeptical, is that typically octopi don't live in freshwater areas. They're capable of doing it for a short time, but they never live there for extended periods. That being said, there have still been multiple sightings and reports of this creature living in these lakes. It's said to be the size of a horse and has a reddish-brownish skin tone to it. It eats what any other octopus would eat, but has a tendency to kill humans in its area. The reasoning behind this is unknown though, because it doesn't actually eat the humans, but only drowns them. Potentially the octopus feels threatened by humans swimming in its water and is very territorial. There's no physical evidence proving the existence of this creature, but the rate of drownings in these 3 lakes that I mentioned earlier, they're far higher than anywhere else in the area. That statistic, along with the numerous sightings from fishermen and swimmers, have locals believing in the legend of the Oklahoma octopus. Number 1 on this list is Organism 46B. Organism 46B is believed to be a massive 33-foot long squid-like creature that was said to have 14 different tentacles. This thing lived in Vostok Lake, which is a subglacial lake located under 2 entire miles of ice. This creature has the ability to animate its legs after they've been amputated, it's capable of shape-shifting, it's extremely intelligent and also extremely hostile, and it has the ability to immobilize its prey with a toxin that it could spray up to 150 feet. We've only actually known about this creature for a few years. Although the Russians initially established an Antarctic base on top of Vostok Lake in 1957, they actually weren't aware that there was a lake beneath them until 1974, and then they weren't able to get to the lake until 2012. It was only after that that they discovered Organism 46B. After they drilled all the way through the ice and got to a point where they could send divers down there, they discovered this creature. Sadly, the discovery was a deadly one though. Dr. Anton Padalka, a researcher at the site, is quoted saying, "He tread water wearing a blissful smile as the organism approached him. We watched helplessly as it used its arms to tear off its head, then popped its remains in its mouth. It was as if it had hypnotized him telepathically." This ability to completely lull its prey into a sense of calm is apparently what this creature's venomous spray is capable of doing to people. Padalka had some more interactions with this beast, but it didn't take long before the Russian government came into the mix and sent a specialized team into Vostok Lake to extract the organism. The fact that any of this news even made it to the public is pretty marvelous, considering the Russian government wanted to keep it under wraps as much as they could. Hopefully there aren't any more of these dangerous beasts lurking in the subglacial waters waiting to strike. Number 5 on this list is a super weapon. One thing that's widely believed about Area 51 is that for a while it was used as a place to develop and test nuclear weapons. Located out in the middle of the desert, very secluded, it made for the perfect spot to develop such deadly weapons. As time went on and the Cold War quieted down, there was less of an emphasis on manufacturing such bombs. In fact, dismantling these bombs has been something that's been going on for quite some time in an effort to make sure we avoid nuclear annihilation of the entire planet. This is all well and good and probably the best thing for all of us. But some believe that this site is kept so secret because there's another type of weapon at play. Nobody knows exactly what it could be, but some people speculate that the United States government specifically uses this site as a place to develop a super weapon. Something that the world would have never seen before. Whether this weapon would take the place of a bomb or a gun or a pathogen is currently unknown, but it would dwarf the atomic bomb in deadliness for sure. Dismantling all atomic bombs looks really good in the tabloids. Making a massive super weapon that could destroy entire countries doesn't look nearly as good. This is why the government has made it their mission to keep it all under wraps. Also, if word got out that the government was trying to make some sort of super weapon, well, it doesn't matter what the actual intentions behind the weapon are, other countries would interpret that as very threatening. They would then either need to build their own super weapon or try to stop America from ever completing the construction of theirs. Both of these scenarios would be very bad for humanity and is definitely something that the American government would want to avoid. I have no idea what this super weapon could be or what it could entail, but if America was making something like this, you have to imagine that Area 51 would be the spot for it. Number 4 on this list is the moon landing. With the Cold War at its height and the space race in full swing, the United States in 1969 made the first successful moon landing in human history. Or at least, that's what they wanted us to think. Ever since the moon landing took place, conspiracy theories of its validity have run rampant. Many people believe that the Americans never really landed on the moon in 1969, but just faked the whole thing to get a leg up in the Cold War. Most people believe that Area 51 was the site where they filmed the whole thing. Area 51 is a massive space that's super closed off to the public. This would be the perfect location to film something like the moon landing if you ever were to do such a thing. You wouldn't want to draw attention to a set like this, so renting out a studio in LA probably wouldn't have been the best idea. If this is true, then it also begs the question, how many other things have been doctored here? Does the United States regularly film stuff here that isn't real and then release that to the public? Unless somebody comes out from the film crew that made this fake video, sadly, we probably won't ever know. Number 3 on this list is Megalodon. Would this list really be complete if I didn't include the ancient king of the sea? Eleanor Imster writes, scientists think that Megalodon looked like a stockier version of the great white shark, with strong, thick teeth built for grabbing prey and breaking bones. Regarded as one of the largest and most powerful predators who have ever lived, fossil remains of Megalodon suggest that this giant shark reached a length of about 60 feet. Their large jaws could exert a bite force up to 24,000 to 41,000 pounds. That is a massive, massive animal, guys. Multiple times bigger than the great white sharks we have today. This thing was so big that it would actually eat entire whales. Now, many myths have surrounded Megalodon and its existence since scientists first brought this mammoth of the sea up. Estimates say that Megalodon went extinct roughly 2.6 million years ago, but some people don't buy into that theory. For quite a while now, the legend of a giant shark still living amongst the ocean has had a lot of people wondering if it's possible. If Megalodon was still alive, is it possible that we still wouldn't know about it? How could we miss a creature this giant? How many of them would there be left in the waters? There are surely a lot of questions that come up if you believe Megalodon is still a reality. If this creature was still alive, then people think the Marianas Trench is where it's located, a place so deep and uncharted that it's hard for us to know for sure what's down there. I'm personally not convinced this creature still roams the ocean, but comment down below your thoughts. Is Megalodon still alive? What do you think? Number 2 on this list is the Kraken. The Kraken is one of the largest sea monsters that is said to exist. It all started in Nordic folklore many hundreds of years ago when sailors told tale of a massive beast that preys upon the waters of Norway, Greenland, and Iceland. This fearsome beast was said to pull entire ships to their doom and eat every human on board. The first account of the legend was in 1180 by the King of Norway at the time. Since then, sightings of the creature and lore surrounding its capabilities have grown through the years. Fiction writers and movie makers have also latched onto this creature and included it in many stories. As cool as it would be though, to our current knowledge, the Kraken itself isn't real. However, something similar to it definitely is. The giant squid. The giant squid is a massive squid that's said to be able to grow up to 13 meters in length. Sightings have even put this creature at 20 meters before, but those have never been proven. Even if 13 meters is the maximum length, that's still a large animal and something that would frighten anyone if you're seeing it for the first time. Many experts believe that the legend of the Kraken happened when Norwegian sailors stumbled upon this giant squid, and rather than name it a giant squid, they called it the Kraken. As time went on, the legend spiraled out of control until we got this massive sea monster which attacks boats. Now, even though that might be a bit far from the truth, could I believe that there was one giant squid that was potentially bigger than the rest? Absolutely I could. I could also believe that this giant squid might have attacked a ship or two in its time and maybe even brought one down. If it did do all of that, then there really wouldn't be any difference between this squid and the Kraken. Either way, if you see a massive sea creature with tentacles coming after you, I'd just swim the opposite direction. Number 1 on this list is the Hook Island sea monster. It was first spotted by Robert Le Sarec in 1964 off of Hook Island, and after he saw the monster, he went on to describe it in detail. He said, "It was only when we got to within 20 feet of the serpent that we could see its head clearly. The head was large, about 4 feet from top to bottom, with jaws about 4 feet wide. The lower jaw was flat like that of a sandfish. The skin was smooth but rather dull, brownish black in color. The eyes seemed pale green, almost white. The skin looked more like that of a shark than an eel. There were no apparent scales, nor did we see any parasites around. We supposed the flexible tail would have shaken any off. There were no fins or spines, nor were there any apparent breathing openings, although there must have been some. Perhaps we didn't see them because our attention was focused mainly on the creature's menacing mouth, the inside of which was whitish. The teeth appeared to be small. A fragment of some dark substance hung from the upper row of teeth, possibly a fish. As the monster was lying on the sandy bottom, we could not see the color of its belly. The creature was about 90 feet long. Behind the head, the body was about 2 feet 4 inches thick and remained that way for about 25 feet. Then it gradually tapered into a whip-like tail. The general color of the body was black with 1 foot wide brownish rings every 5 feet. The first starting just behind the head. The skin was smooth but dull. So that's his description, and after he and his family saw it, he took some pictures of the creature to prove his claims. We have to remember that these pictures were taken in 1964 and doctoring them would have been far more difficult back then than it is today. I also tend to believe this claim more than most based on the level of detail he described the beast. Obviously it was a pretty jarring experience if he was able to describe the creature in that much detail. Since the claims, people have researched Hook Island for this monster, but with no luck. Hopefully one day we can spot this monster again and know for certain that it truly exists.
Number 5, Fengdu Ghost City. Fengdu Ghost City. Well, right off the bat, I feel like this is probably a spooky place. You don't name cities Ghost City unless there's a good reason for it. Well, the good reason is that the city got its name during the Eastern Han Dynasty. 2 imperial nobles, Yin Changshen and Wang Fengpin, came to Ming Mountain to discover a way to achieve immortality. Combining their 2 names, Yin and Wang, Ying Wang, translates to King of Hell, and that cemented the site as an underworld hotspot. Since then, the place was built to be a shrine to the underworld with several temples showing paintings and sculptures of people being punished for their sins and cast into eternal damnation. It's pretty spooky, but honestly it's pretty cool. It's good craftsmanship. And there is some rich folklore to go with the place. Chinese mythology and beliefs say that the dead must pass 3 tests before they're allowed to cross into the underworld, which sounds exhausting to me. I can't even enjoy the relief of death before you're asked to solve some riddles and pass some tests. The village is kind of like a place to conduct these tests, and now you can actually go to it yourself and do it as a tourist attraction and watch performers act out all the trials. But here's the trials. The first test is passing the Bridge of Helplessness, which does sound a little bit like it's from one of the Dark Souls games. It was built during the Ming Dynasty, and good souls are allowed to pass, while evil ones will fall into the water below. Then, you proceed to Ghost Torturing Pass. Oh, that's a fun place to be, where they present themselves for judgment. Finally, the last test is at the entrance to Tianzi Palace, where the ghost must stand on a certain stone on 1 foot for 3 minutes straight. I don't know why I'm standing on 1 foot when the camera is above my waist. You can't tell what I'm doing. I could be standing on as many feet as I want. A good soul will be able to do it, an evil one will fall over. Now this site now is a popular tourist destination due to its very unique structures and fascinating, if not a little bit horrifying decor. I'd want one of those little statues maybe have in my house. I think they're kind of cool, to be honest. And if you're looking for more hellish haunted spots, terrifying tales of poltergeists, ghosts, ghouls, cryptids, aliens, and all kinds of freaks under the sun and above it, while Top 5 Scary is simply the only place to be. Subscribe and stay scared. Number 4, Kaishiku Grounds. If you go to Kaishiku today, you probably wouldn't think much of it at all. Most notable thing around there is a subway station, and aside from that, there's a vegetable market outside, and you can probably score a pretty decent deal on corn. But if you visited Kaishiku back in the 19th century, however, when it served as an execution grounds for prisoners, you probably wouldn't feel too welcome. Thousands of prisoners were brought to the Kaishiku grounds to serve out their last moments. Every autumn, prisoners were taken through the Zwanmumen, which earned the fun nickname, the Gate of Death at dawn. Awesome. The doomed would then be lined up east to west, their necks stretched by rope to make it easier to chop. Well, that's good. We always want to make it as easy as possible for the guy chopping necks. A singular chop to the neck was considered the easy way out of a one-way trip to Kaishiku. Prisoners accused of more serious crimes would be sentenced to lingchi, which was a horrid punishment of slowly slicing someone many times, leading to it sensationally being dubbed the death of 1,000 cuts by outsiders. These executions were designed to be a public spectacle, something for everybody to come and enjoy, something for the whole family to do when no good movies were playing. Kaishiku was one of the busiest intersections in the outer city of Beijing, so crowds would gather to see these things. Most horrifically about this, though, is that sometimes the prisoners who were executed, their bodies were photographed and made into postcards. Given this sordid history, is it much of a surprise at all that passers-by and visitors claim that they can sometimes see ghostly apparitions making their way through the dark hours of the night, or that you can hear screams at all hours? If you ever visit Beijing and make a stop by Kaishiku, take a photo. The postcards they sell in the gift shop are a little dicey.
Number 3 on this list is Harvey Point Defense Testing Activity Facility. This site is located in North Carolina and is definitely something that the government doesn't like to advertise. Ever wonder where the elites of the elite train? Like the super secret, super advanced soldiers that only come out for the crazy covert missions? Well, this is that place. Wikipedia writes, specialty military air operations are located at this facility as the installation has 2 usable landing fields and plans for a 3rd. The FAA Charlotte Sectional Aeronautical Chart identifies this area as special use airspace R5301, which is continuously restricted from general aviation traffic from the surface of an altitude of 14,000 feet above mean sea level. Areas of Albermay Sound adjacent to the facility are also under restricted airspace R5302, which is under the operational authority of Giant Killer, or whichever ATC has controlling authority over the airspace at that time. Harvey Point is also used for CIA paramilitary and counterterrorism courses that involve high explosives and ballistics. The explosives are used to simulate terrorist bombs and can be heard for miles in the surrounding communities. It was also used by DevGru to train for the raid that killed Osama bin Laden in a scale mock-up of his secret compound. Pretty much all of the super elite military governmental stuff is going down at this spot. The team that took out Osama bin Laden trained here. Like, it really doesn't get more secret and advanced than that. Also, there have been a ton of rumors about the types of weapons that are being developed here too. Incredibly advanced aircraft that will have capabilities hard for us to even understand are apparently being built here. The advancements may not just stop with equipment either, but may even go further to people as well. Obviously, Iron Man and Captain America are superheroes and they aren't real, but if there ever was a site where the government was to be experimenting with things like that, then this would be it. Either incredibly advanced war bodysuits or literally making superhumans, then this could be the place where all that goes down. Number 2 on this list is Jeannette Island. Jeannette Island is located in the East Siberian Sea and belongs to the Russians. This island is shrouded in mystery though for the history it has had with Google Earth. Similarly to our other creepy Alaskan island, when you go on to Google Earth, you can't actually see anything here. In fact, for a while, all you could see was a black blob where an island should be, and then more recently it was changed so that there's literally no landmass here at all. The Sun writes, it's not clear why the island is blurred, although there have been issues around whether the territory belongs to Russia or the USA. Some conspiracy theorists have suggested the spot is an ideal location for a secret Russian military base as it's relatively close to the US and Canada. Google often blocks out military locations on its Maps tool, including air bases in Germany, missile silos in Russia, and bases in Afghanistan. Images of the island were provided to Google by the International Bathymetric Chart of the Arctic Ocean, a project to map the Arctic Ocean initiated in St. Petersburg, Russia. This Russian military base thing has definitely been gaining some traction. As the Sun said, this base would be pretty close to North America, which is something Russia would definitely want. It's also super secluded and the perfect spot to be conducting some really questionable experiments or projects that you don't want prying eyes of the world to see. When Google was inevitably asked about why they don't have a picture for this, the spokesperson for them declined to comment. And number 1 on this list is Znamensk. This is a Russian city and one that's largely been kept off the radar since its birth because it's something that the Russian government doesn't want anyone to know about. Passport Symphony says, Znamensk was founded in 1948 as a missile test range facility under the name of Kasputin Yar. Multiple launches of test rockets and satellites were carried out at this site throughout the years. Eventually, Kasputin Yar became a cosmodrome in 1966, and like the other cities on this list, it wasn't shown on the map until the 1990s. There are many things that make Znamensk the most mysterious city in Russia, and one of them is a UFO crashing that happened in the 1950s. Some even argue that this incident allowed the Russians to design Sputnik and achieve an early lead in the space race. This story was kept secret and only recently became known to the media. This made Kasputin Yar known as the Russian Roswell. However, note that this isn't the only mystery that happened at Znamensk, but rather the only one that made it public. The site's function was interrupted after the fall of the Soviet Union, but it began working again in 1998. We got missile launches, we got weapon development, UFO landings. It's no wonder that the Russians don't want anybody catching on to this place. The fact that it was literally around for almost 50 years before it even appeared on a map is super questionable as well. What the heck was going on at this place for 50 years that was so secretive that they couldn't have anyone even knowing about its existence? One has to think that this place is similar to Area 51 in America. I personally wouldn't be surprised if Russia's still using this as a spot to do some really scary and probably pretty questionable experiments without anybody knowing. Those could involve aliens, genetic mutations, maybe even advanced weaponry development. It's hard to say truly what's going on at this place, and it's likely that Russia kinda wants to keep it that way.